Quality stuff there.
I know, it's wonderful. Like, it's just, I really am in the festive mood. It's like, I'm emotional after that almost. It's great.
Well,
I'm
Christmas.
Go on.
Christmas did start on Tuesday, didn't it? Colombia's sort of quite strange system of kind of kicking off Christmas. I think it's quite good starting at Bolitas. I think it's a good system. I like it. Not too early, not too late.
Yeah, La Noche de los Velitas, or the Night of the Little Candles, for those who aren't familiar with Spanish. Now, Ollie, I've been in Colombia for 10 years, so I've had 11 now, Noche de los Velitas. And I can't remember any of them being as lively as the one I experienced on Tuesday.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone I know is saying the same thing. So many fireworks. I mean, I'm quite lucky that my animals are all okay with pyrotechnics, but yeah, I mean, just for me, I found it quite hard to sleep. I have to be honest. It was going on until easily 2 or 3.
Well, naively enough, Ollie, I had hoped that Tuesday night I said I'm going to be a bit productive and get working on my next iQuiz, which is this day next week. And just with all the noise and everything, I couldn't. So I wandered over to my favourite barrio, as everybody knows, or people who are regular viewers of this show anyway, to Santandercito. And the barrio was bouncing. It was like a carnival. Like, you couldn't but just get caught up in the whole atmosphere. Now, I was in a kind of bad mood, as I've been in a bad mood all year, as most people know. But when I was there, I soon kind of cheered up. It was so lively. All, kids out running, with obviously dangerous enough as well, because it's not just those little firecrackers, but bangers, proper bangers that would take your hand off. And I know we always have a number of incidents. I think there was something like 60 or at least 50 incidents reported of damage with fireworks and people in A&E and things like that. But yeah, it was like, I really feel like I've had my Christmas, because then it rolled into yesterday being, of course, a festivo. And again, I wasn't aware of this, that the 8th of December is Communion Day. Did you know that?
Yes, that's why.
Good Catholic.
Yeah. Well, yeah. No, they always have. That's why Bolitas is the day before. Yeah.
Yeah. So my friend's daughter, she had her communion. Now, apparently, she did invite me to the church, but I forgot that. But then I was like, "Hey, come over to the house. Like, we're having a few drinks and stuff." So yeah, then rolled in. So really, the last 2 days felt like kind of Christmas for me. I'm kind of going, that's it. I don't need to celebrate on the 24th or the 25th. I've done my reveling. I don't know. What was it? Did you go out on Tuesday?
No, I didn't. No.
You did. Okay, no. Interesting. And I'd like to know what it.
I don't really like Bolitas. I've got to be honest. I quite like it for other people. For me, I just kind of think it's quite a lot of extra rubbish on the floor, but rubbish that's literally stuck in place and waterproof. Plus, as David O'Donoghue points out here, not my dogs, but certainly, I mean, Wednesday morning I bumped into a sort of neighborhood dog and its owner, who I see quite a lot, and he was, the poor dog was still terrified in the morning.
Yeah, it is terrible. Of course, isn't there calls? I've heard this in the UK anyway, for Guy Fawkes Night to have soundless fireworks, so you don't have the explosions and things like that. Of course, for the young kids in the barrio, I think that's not half, that's all the fun, like letting off these explosions, and they're quite liberal with them as well. It's like letting them explode a few feet away from people. Little wonder there are lots of injuries on the night. But anyway, as I said, it was lively, and that's my celebrating done now. I'm not drinking again until my birthday in February, if you believe that. Anyway, does it look like I'm in prison, Ollie?
No.
Does it? Oh, well, some people might say it does, because I'm officially in Facebook prison. I've got a 3-day ban. First time ever, first time for these things. Anyway, let's crack on with things on what will be an emotional show, because as I alluded to, I have a certain iQuiz trivia night to host this night next week. So this is our final show of 2021, and whisper it, maybe our final show ever, format or slot anyway. So we'll keep you informed about things in January. But we'll hold back the tears, guys, and do our best to look back at the year that was 2021. And while the pandemic and the response to it dominated and continues to dominate much of the news, in April, if you remember, Colombia was rocked by mass and at times violent protests. We'll remind you of what they were about and what, if anything, they brought about. In a year of political manoeuvring aplenty, as we fast approach a presidential election in the first half of 2022. El Presidente Petro. Is it going to happen? And what was meant to be Colombia and Argentina's Copa America ended up going to Brazil, the hosting of it. That is, we'll look back on a football year that has seen our adopted Selección become the draw, or for our US viewers, tie specialists. We'd love to get your take on the past 12 months. Has it been a year to largely forget, or is it one that will live long in the memory for you? Get in touch with us right now by using the live comment facility, and your messages will appear magically on screen. The wonders of Mark Zuckerberg's Facebook. If you're watching this, commenting on where you're viewing at, with the hashtag Bogotá Nights. Our review of the year is to come, but first it's our review of the past week. And female adolescents across the land have been left heartbroken, many with a feeling that they were blatantly used after everybody's favourite influencer, Zach Morris, announced that he is officially a bear. I thought he left about a year ago anyway. Ollie still hasn't come to terms with that news in an emotional night, so we won't delve into that story just yet. Let's give him a few minutes. First, as the Bogotá Post informed us online this week, you can check out the story, we have new COVID-related restrictions on entry to the country. What are they, Ollie? What's new?
Well, Colombia's following probably, I would say, most of the countries around the world now, by declaring that to enter Colombia, you will need to show proof of vaccination, along with a negative COVID test. So it's a two-part process. That's for any visitors to Colombia. For people who live in Colombia or people who have Colombian nationality, it's slightly different. You can show either a negative test or a vaccination, but you don't have to show both. It's not quite clear exactly what the logic is there on that. You'd think people who are resident in Colombia or who lived in Colombia would have the same risk of bringing it back. I think the key thing is that they're kind of being quite careful to say, if you're Colombian or if you're resident in Colombia, you can get back in as long as you don't have COVID at the time of trying to get in or have been vaccinated. So it should be fairly easy. I mean, most people who are Colombian or resident in Colombia should be able to get in with a minimum of fuss. Slightly more tricky for some people outside the country. What's not clear in all of this is exactly where people stand with V and with M visas. If you fit into Group 1 or Group 2. Group 1 being residents and Colombians, Group 2 being tourists and visitors.
Yeah, because obviously I'm on a V visa and I'm not 100% sure, should I leave the country, like I've kind of half a plan of maybe going back to Europe in February or March and maybe just for a visit and then coming back, but that could get tricky. as an unvaccinated person coming back in on a B visa, because I mean technically the visa is granted to me to work, so it's not as a tourist per se. And obviously, if one has a bank account and lives here, but I might be in that group that's lumped together with the tourists. By the way, you're saying like the logic, but that's the same logic that the United States is applying as well, in terms of residents and citizens of the US don't need the vaccine to enter. I think they need a negative test, but other people do have to have the vaccine. So it's following that logic. It does leave us, Ollie, with
no. I fully understand that. What sort of confuses me is that, for example, I could come back into Colombia without having to show a negative test just because I've been vaccinated. So, I could go to England, get Omicron, and then come back and start spreading it in Colombia. I don't have to show a negative test, which seems to me a little bit bizarre. It makes a lot of sense to only show to be able to show a negative test to get in. That makes perfect sense. To say that you don't have to be vaccinated because you may have been in a country where it's difficult, etc., that's perfectly fine. I follow the logic there. What seems really odd to me is that people like myself will be allowed in regardless of test status just because we've been vaccinated.
Yeah, I fully understand and agree with that point. Like at the end of the day, if it's about trying to reduce contagion and things like that, you would reckon that the negative test is more important, because as we've seen, there are breakthrough infections with the vaccine. Yeah. Anyway, I was going to say it leaves us though with just 3 countries in the region now that are actually pretty much open for business without any COVID-related restrictions, namely Costa Rica, the Dominican Republic, and Mexico. Because I know ENATO, the National Association of Travel Agents and Tour Groups, have been kind of vocal on this kind of, I think, well, number one, they were hoping that there would be like an agreement across the region. Because in fairness, if you're a tourist and even vaccinated, if you have to go through more hoops and show tests and do all that kind of stuff to travel and add to your expenses, if I was maybe in Ireland or something now and thinking, I want to go to Latin America, but to get into Colombia I have to do this, to get into Argentina I have to do this. Mexico, I can just land there and no questions asked. It does give them a piece. Obviously, tourism is important to Colombia. I'm sure there are those in the sector. Interested to know what people think. Measures you think was about thought that Colombia was way too liberal, or are you questioning why now? Why didn't they do? What's the point in doing it at this perhaps late stage of the game? People might say, but Omicron, of course, is the other game changer. And Ollie, we talked last week.
Hang on, just to bring in there. I think this is going to be connected, as you said, Brendan, maybe not the tourist boards, but I think governments certainly are looking to get kind of a standardized system going. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's been kind of back channel speaking between foreign officers to say, look, everybody's going to be asking for the vaccine. If we all act together, if we all have the same rules. So that's why I suspect Mexico and Costa Rica and the Dominican Republic will have pressure put on them to follow suit. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I lost you a little bit there, but I got the gist of it. Again, dodgy internet up here in the far north of Bogotá. But I was going to say, we talked last week about the restrictions now for socializing, basically going into cinemas, into certain bars and things like that, and a lack of checking that we noticed anyway, although some people did write in to say that there were checks in other places. But the police chief, apparently, like, all these things are going to actually become law from the 14th of December. So it's going to become, in theory, you would imagine then, if the police or other authorities are going to be able to, that seems that's going to come in terms of flying into the country. So we could see if the ability is there to issue fines. Well, I'm sure the police would like to get their hands in on that if they can.
Yeah, it seems that we've been in kind of an extended sort of probation period, and things are going to get serious as of Tuesday.
Yeah. Again, play it by ear, I guess. We'll see what happens. I know there are events that are happening next week that will be put to the test in the run-up to Christmas. But speaking of other countries and comparing ones, a certain influencer, Ollie, has decided to leave this country because he's bored with Colombia. The great Zach Morris, as I mentioned in the introduction there, has bid adieu to this fair land and has gone to Argentina. And he's done it in a typically Zach Morris way, very quiet, didn't really tell anybody.
Yeah, he's up to his usual classy endeavors. So he's ranking Colombian women up against Argentinian women. He's marking random Argentinians on their level of English. He's getting in touch with other dodgy influencers down there. And perhaps most sort of disquietingly, running around boasting about how much his Yankee dollar goes against the Argentine peso. Let's remember that Argentina's been in kind of hyperinflation for quite a while now. So, yeah, it's a little bit tactless, to say the least. But, it just goes to show, we talked about short-term migration policy and this desperate need to be adored by especially a certain type of foreigner, like, we saw Dominic Wolf and we saw Zach Morris being given preferential treatment. And, this is exactly the reason why doing that's not a good idea. These people don't necessarily care about Colombia. They are just going to rush off as fast as they can. And they were just in it for the kind of money and glory, as it were.
Yeah, the money and the likes and the YouTube views. And just the backstory, of course, with Zach Morris, if people aren't aware, he basically ran into visa difficulties. He was stranded in the US and he had his big adolescent following of Colombianas who loved the man. And he recorded a YouTube video saying it was terrible. And in the end, the Cancilleria did a U-turn and not only gave him a visa, but gave him citizenship. And I think it was one of the first things on Duque's agenda back in 2018, giving Zach Morris citizenship. It was a priority. Duque got elected on it. But there you go, and off he goes to Argentina. Now, I will, in defence of Dominic Wolf, even though I had a bit of a scathing article about him about this time last year, or last October it was, as somebody pointed out, at least Dominic Wolf has a tour company here, so he does kind of have, skin in the game, so to put it. Whereas Zach Morris technically was just really using the country as much as he could.
Oh, no. Do you not know about Zach Morris's tour company?
Oh, well, somebody did tell me about it now that you say, but I think it was more just there on paper. I don't think,
yeah, with his big promotion to say all money raised goes to Colombian citizens, of course, including himself.
Yeah, I remember that. But anyway, look, people would say, "Oh, you're just jealous, guys, because you never got the views that he got and the fame and whatever else." But number one, I have to say I'm not jealous. Good luck to the man. Never met him. Well, he did comment on my YouTube audio blog when I was writing about Dominic Wolf and that, and I have to say it wasn't the nicest of comments that I've received. What goes around comes around, anyway. We'll leave Zach Morris there. That's enough, and we'll never mention him again. But who knows? He could be on some version. Yeah, he might be on some version of what's it? I'm a celebrity. Get me out of here. in Colombia in years to come or something. Wouldn't surprise me. Pot, Ollie, are you a fan of pot?
I know where you're going with this. You mean plan, orden, territorial. Yeah, Claudia Lopez is again failing to get her giant kind of city planning ordinance through past the Bogotá Council. A lot of people don't know that the Bogotá Council exists. So there's often this conception that the Bogotá mayor is this extremely powerful figure in the country, and that's not strictly true. They're very high profile, but they're not particularly powerful. The Council of Bogotá puts serious brakes on them, and that's exactly what's happened here. It's looking like Claudia Lopez is going to run out of time to get anything done, and she's going to have to go back to the drawing board next year.
Yeah, so this is basically like it's the Spanish initiative. That's what I'm on about. POT, or Plan Ordenamiento Territorial, basically a territorial management plan. So, is it to do with land zoning and where infrastructure can go and different city works?
And how high buildings can be in certain parts of the city, and lines of sight and shading and all kinds of things like that. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And that's, I guess, maybe an analogy with the mayor here, a bit like the U.S. president, who might have the houses of Congress and the Senate against again, the other party. We would say if it was a Democratic Party and the Republican-controlled houses, then it would tie his hands at times. So that's kind of what it's like. Ollie, Colombia doesn't tend to make Irish news that often, but I was scrolling on RTE, Ireland's national broadcaster's sports web pages, and they mentioned this potential match fixing that we had in the second division, La Liga Betplay B, as they would say, at the weekend. Who was involved? What's it about? You sent me a video, and well, I have to say I know some guys who that's how they play football. Not very well and don't put in much effort. But go on, explain. Tell us.
Are they paid professionals, Brendan? Look, I mean, we can all have a bit of a giggle, can't we, about the ineptitude of people like, I don't know, Harry Maguire or whatever. But come on, this is or Roque Jr. But this is laughably bad. For anyone who hasn't seen the video, look it up. It's pretty easy to find. Union Magdalena probably will get you it with Llaneros. So basically, let's just recap, Brendan. Llaneros beating Union Magdalena with just stoppage time to play. And miraculously, Union, Pibe Valderrama's old club, out of nowhere, score 2 goals, which are highly suspicious. So we've got, including at the end, where the goalkeeper appears to be trying, but the 2 defenders literally just turn their back on the attacker and leave him a space big enough to run a car through to just side foot home. It's just, I mean, it doesn't look. It looks like when sort of you see footage of a children's match where something accidentally happens, so one team lets the other one score. It looked a bit like that, but with a goalkeeper at least trying. It looks very suspicious, and Llaneros defenders are now saying that they're receiving death threats. They're scared to leave the house. They claim they're not corrupt. But, corrupt people always do claim that, don't they?
Yeah, well, in fairness, as you did say, the goalkeeper did look as if he was trying, so maybe somebody didn't inform him. But it's also that obviously if match fixing and money involved, because like Janeros really had nothing. It was only to help Magdalena get through, and what they've basically done is mean that Fortaleza, which would have been another Bogotá team in the top flight, that would have meant 4 Bogotá teams in the top flight, had Fortaleza not been denied top spot, so to put it. But like, I don't know. It does look dodgy, I have to say, but maybe the lads were just completely exhausted because they were out of energy.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and of course, the worrying thing about this is it's gone, as you say, it's gone around the world. You know, you've got Juan Cuadrado tweeting from Italy, from Turin, to say, you know, this is a shame for Colombian football. And he means shame not as in, oh, it's a shame, but as in, this is shameful. And, you know, when it gets to that level, it has to be investigated. It's very hard to look after it. Let's look at the facts. The Colombian League is sponsored by a betting organization. There have been previous allegations of corruption against Llaneros, the team that conceded the goals. This all just looks very, 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 very fishy.
And do we know, did they have previous with Fortaleza Llaneros?
Yes.
Like what?
So the Fortaleza manager has, team owner has gone to the press to say, look, you know, I've made complaints about them before. I've been told that Llaneros games will be rigged before, and I've made complaints to Di Mayo, or the kind of FA of Colombia. But of course, he's made complaints to people who are also accused of corruption, people who turned up on the blacklist story for people who were tuning in last week. Union are one of the many teams that conspired to blacklist players with the collusion of the league. So, allegedly. So, yeah, this is all very, very murky.
Yeah, now, by the way, the final has been, the B final, the second division final has been postponed while they look into this, because the Fiscalia, which would, I guess kind of the Attorney General or something along those lines, is looking into it. And Llaneros were asked to send players, but what they did was send lawyers rather than any of their players. But the final, it's Cortelua, they were top of the other mini group. So they're waiting to see what happens. So there might be a chance that Fortaleza do get promoted in the end. I guess we'll watch this space, because now, as you said, it's not just a little Colombia matter. This is all over the world. And everybody's talking about it at the minute. By the way, is it lively around your part of town right now with Ciclovia La Noche?
No, it doesn't appear to be. I mean, I can see the Septima from here. No, I haven't popped out. For a start, it's raining and quite miserable. And for second, all of the lights are quite a long way away from me at the moment.
Okay. Well, the reason I asked is that we've got a big game not too far away from you there, really, in El Campín, Millonarios against Deportes Tolima. And the last I checked, and I'm going to have a quick check again, 64 minutes on the clock, and Millonarios are a goal to the good. And they're kind of competing at this moment in time for top spot. And that's game 4 of 6. So Millos could be, and I've got my blue on, getting closer to a final, which would be in the other group. It's Junior Cali, Deportivo Cali and Junior. They're going head to head Saturday. The winner of that. Well, no, Cali need to win it to keep the pressure on. But if Junior win, then they're guaranteed to be in the final. Something tells me you have a bit of a soft spot for Junior. Barranquilla side.
So I'm losing you a little bit there, Brendan.
sorry, I was just saying, something tells me that you have a soft spot for Barranquilla.
Junior are a proper football team, aren't they?
Yeah.
They play in red and white. Obviously, proper football colours. None of this green nonsense. Celtic being the exception. Celtic being the exception. And of course, national teams, can play in whatever colour they like. But yeah, nice red and white kit. I wonder if Barranquilla, Junior de Barranquilla, has got to be one of the biggest one city clubs in the world, I think. I can't think of many other cities in the world of that size who only have one team and are in a football country.
Is there no other team in Barranquilla then? Like no kind of Mickey Mouse team?
Really, no. I mean, not. In fact, really, on the rest of the coast, who else is challenging them? Tigres, Jaguares, maybe. Union Magdalena, of course. But they've got that huge area. Teams like Real Cartagena are tiny. They're absolutely minuscule.
Yeah, I guess playing football in that heat, Ollie, it's not fun. So maybe that's the reason why you don't have too many big clubs. Anyway, we'll leave our week our review of the week's news there. Now we look back at the year that was. And I mentioned at the start, and by the way, guys, do let us know if there's things that have stood out for you this year. Has it been a positive year, negative, or kind of indifferent and just waiting for 2022 to get going as we're now kind of in silly season? Do let us know what your thoughts on the protests. How do you think they will play out in terms of the presidential election? Oh, and by the way, I was watching Caracol TV, the news, and they have a debate between the candidates for the Centro Esperanza, which to me that's kind of like that's quite niche. Like, why are Caracol doing that, like national TV, for a party or a grouping that's just to decide who their candidate's going to be? I thought that's giving them a lot of exposure, isn't it?
Yeah, it does seem odd. I mean, it would be very odd to see. I find the whole Colombian political system just bizarre. Full stop. It doesn't function. I mean, I'm fascinated by this idea of not really having strong parties. I find that really interesting. Obviously, thinking back to England, Labour and Conservatives are absolutely dominant, and you follow party first, really, rather than personalities. You certainly wouldn't have major figures moving from one party to another party. Minor backbench MPs maybe, but not the big figures. So that's really kind of unusual. And I guess it would be
Winston Churchill.
Yeah, but that's yeah. But we're talking about decades ago. Of course, I'm guessing in Ireland there's 3 big parties.
Yeah. There's usually obviously the two big ones I've mentioned, so they're divided ideologically more to an old civil war, but I won't go into that whole talk. But so you've got your kind of parties, and as you said, it's kind of party first, and maybe then personality is down the list. But it is interesting here. But we will get into kind of more of that in more detail and kind of cast an eye forward to 2022, to who indeed might be taking over from Duque. But outside of all the different measures that we had with the pandemic and the easing of restrictions being ramped up again, and now you could say we're kind of getting into what is the new normal. But the focus here for a few months wasn't on the pandemic at all, Ollie. And you'd nearly forget about what I certainly, when I was thinking back in the years, like, oh yeah, we had mass protests there for a few months. All started off in April. So what was the catalyst, and why did they kick off, and what's been the results, or has there been any results?
Well, I mean, there's got an underlying reason for all of this. Is just that people are a little bit pissed off and they're not quite really sure who to be pissed off with. You know, they just, life's a bit shit protests, which have been rumbling on in Colombia for about, what, 5 years now? 6 years? So the catalyst was VAT on eggs, Brendan. You know, the possibility of having to pay a little bit more for your for you know, living birds to be tortured under horrible conditions and you to steal their children. That horrified people, and out they went. A very controversial tax bill, which, let's not forget in all of this, was actually quite sensible in terms of kind of balancing the books and trying to put Colombia on an even keel financially. It wasn't a bad suggestion at all. But what's quite worrying here is that it definitely seems that pretty much any suggestion that anybody has to pay any more money is going to be wildly unpopular. And that's going to inform next year in a really big way. So yeah, that was the kind of the big kickoff, you know, the idea that there might be extra taxes coming in. And to be fair, it's very hard to see a lot of the time where your tax money is going in Bogotá, in Colombia.
Yeah, well, that's always the grievance. Even yesterday, I was having a bit of a political discussion with a guy who fixes my bike, bike mechanic, and yeah, like that was his point. He said, "Well, like, you know, why should I pay taxes? Look at the state of the street here," and he's got a point there in that particular barrio in Santandercito as well, where a lot of them don't even have asphalt on the street or any pavings. So yeah, there's that kind of like, well, where if I pay more taxes, more of it's going to be robbed and corruption and all that. You do generally make the point though that if more money is collected, there's a higher chance that some of it will go back into good causes.
Of course, if you collect more tax, more of it will get robbed. That's obviously true. You know, it's a brute figure. Whether or not as much will be robbed as a percentage figure is hard to know. But even if it is, we're still going to end up with more services. You know, we talk about the state of the roads. They would be in a better state if people paid more tax. There's, you know, not all of it would get robbed. But equally, you know, it's a really hard sell, as you say, to your bicycle mechanic. It's a very, very, very hard sell when he says, but there are no services here. And it's another it's a little bit like the Amazon corporation tax problem in England. Amazon dodge a lot of tax. That's irrelevant compared to the number of small businesses in England who don't charge VAT and rip off the exchequer. Because there are millions of them, their tax bill is much higher than Amazon. But Amazon, of course, is very visible. And again, this is what we see with the politicians. Their impact on Colombian corruption is negligible. But they're extremely visible, and it's very easy for people to sort of see them and visualize that small amount of money. And it's very, very hard to visualize the enormous sums of corruption money that exist in things like, for example, banking or construction. But you can't see that. If you see a minister who's creaming off, you know, a couple of $1 million US here or a couple of $1 million US there, that's actually irrelevant to Colombia as a, you know, large economy. But it looks dramatic. It looks spectacular.
Yeah, easy scapegoats, I guess, in some ways, and people can kind of then maybe feel good about themselves when, you know, there's an attack on a politician or somebody is forced to resign, etc., etc. It's like, oh yeah, we're doing stuff to combat all this, but as you say, the real corruption and the real problem lies elsewhere. or certainly in greater proportion in other areas.
Well, talking about resignation, we've had a couple of people actually, a couple of Colombian politicians actually take sort of responsibility for cock-ups in all of this. So Carrasquilla went, to be fair, pretty quickly after his tax bill. And I've got to be honest, it is political harakiri to say that you don't know what the price of eggs is just absolutely, not knowing the price of eggs, the price of milk, the price of bread, etc., staple foods. That's going to get you killed in any country. And yeah, that's exactly what happened to Carrasquilla.
Yeah, well, in fairness, there was a time, there was a lot of kind of musical chairs with the ministries for Duque. It always looked like you or I be getting a call from Duque to be a minister, because it seemed everybody was jumping ship, because we're in this kind of period now where Duque's knows he's not going to be president after August next year, so it's just about keeping things ticking over, and obviously the brand Duque, like even Uribe was doing his bit to kind of distance himself from it at times. Yeah, so it's kind of stabled a little bit now, hasn't it? It's become a little stabler, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've all come to the conclusion, Ivan Duque has been... by the time he finally leaves office, he'll have spent more than a year as a lame duck. And that does give you some possibilities, As a lame duck, there are certain things you can get away with. But he's not taking that advantage as of yet. But yeah, I mean, look, he's just so toxic now that no one wants to be associated with him, not even his own party. I doubt you will see Zuluaga signalling towards Duque as a kind of heroic person that he's proud to follow on from. And I think everybody in that cabinet has kind of just accepted that they're tainted now, so they might as well get on with things.
Yeah, well, considering the future of Bogotá Nights is up in the air for our last show of the year, just have a look into your crystal ball there, Ollie. Where do you see Ivan Duque in the future? Like, is he just going to disappear, maybe relocate to the US or something? And because he's young, obviously, he's still in his 40s, so... Yeah. Like
he'll write some more books. I would imagine he'll pop up, giving lectures and doing talks and doing that kind of circuit. And of course, don't forget, he is fantastically wealthy. He's not exactly from a poor family, so he'll probably just kind of go back to Rosales and roll about in money.
But he actually lives in Cedritos, doesn't he? It's like 140. I used to be quite close to where he lived. Yeah, because during those November 2019 protests, there were people
trying to go to his house.
Yeah. Well, Ivan, if you're listening and you feel like investing in a project, Ollie and I are open to all discussions. You could be a third presenter. And we can continue on with Bogotá Nights, maybe do a nice Sunday mid-afternoon chat show. Ivan, get in touch.
Acoustic guitar not welcome. No one likes the guy that turns up with an acoustic guitar. That's a general rule.
He's a handy guitar player, though, isn't he? I believe.
Yeah. But the time and place for that is not on a radio show.
Okay, well, we'll go from Duque and we'll swing over to the left of the political spectrum while we're on politics. This is as close, surely, that Gustavo Petro is going to get to be president of Colombia. Now, if are we going to be here or wherever we are in the world, but this time next year with Presidente Gustavo Petro? Do you see it? Like, do you think it will happen?
I think it's possible. I'm definitely not ruling it out. I really don't want to get. I think it's a real mug's game to be predicting it. I would say until at least late January, more like kind of late February. I wouldn't want to put too many predictions down. I would take all opinion polling with a pinch of salt. There's a lot of time, a lot of things that could happen. I'd say he's definitely got a shot. I think he's in a stronger position than he was last election. I think he's got easier candidates against him. Like I think Zuluaga, we talked about this last week. I think Zuluaga's a poor choice. I don't think he's enthusing anyone. I think that gives Petro more of a chance. The situation that the country's in gives Petro a chance. And of course, he's just had 4 years of demographic change that more or less favours him. So, yeah, we'll see. I wouldn't get drawn on it, but I think he's got a shot. I think he was completely toxic last time, but that's not, we're not in 2018 now. We're in 2022.
Just about there, yeah. So does that mean the end of Colombia as we know it is this open market cozying up to the United States, even though things with the United States arguably gone a little sour of late? The US acted unilaterally, apparently, by removing the FARC from their list on the list of terrorists. They didn't inform the Casa de Nariño about that.
Yeah, but I mean that it's a perfectly reasonable step for the US to take, and to be honest, I think that's friendly to Colombia, even if it's not friendly to the administration in power. Oh, I think we've lost you a little bit there, Brendan. Oh, and yeah, oh no, you're back.
Yeah, no, I missed your response to that. My question in terms of Colombia being the lapdog of the United States, etc., etc. So, can you give it to me in a nutshell, just so I know? You didn't say anything controversial, did you?
I think what the US did might not be particularly friendly to the Colombian administration, but I think it shows they're being friendly towards Colombia as a country. Oh, I think we've lost you again. There. No? Yes?
Yeah, I hope I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yep, we've got you now. So what about football? To go with the World Cup that was given to Mexico, now we've got a Copa America that was given to Brazil.
Yeah, a bit disappointing not to have it. It would have been exciting to have the big teams from South America playing here and being in the country for a month or whatever. I'd love to know, will it come back? Will they get it for whenever there's maybe two
that's not clear, is it?
Yeah, like all things being kind of fair and equal, whatever, that they should be given a chance to have it again. But anyway, outside of that, it did go ahead in Brazil, and decent run and a new star for Colombia, or kind of the guy who's taken over from James for us. It's Lucho Diaz. He's the guy now, isn't he?
Very much so. Yeah, hot property, and could well be moving in January. And you'd have to say that the Copa America was really a breakout tournament for him.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, like he was, as I said, the star of the show. What did you think of the tournament in general? I mentioned in the intro, of course, like Colombia now the draw or the tie specialists, especially in the qualifiers for the World Cup. But even in that tournament, I mean, remember the game against Venezuela, where the Venezuelan goalkeeper, he was inspired that night. Thou shalt not pass. I mean, it was the most one-sided 0-0 draw I think I've ever seen.
Yeah,
but I mean, of course. Go on.
No, you go on.
Well, I was going to say, like, so there was a draw there. They drew another one, and then, like, even in the knockout stages, they won them all. They won against Uruguay on penalties, and then lost on penalties to Argentina. So technically, games that finished level as well. So they're difficult to beat Colombia right now, but they're finding it hard to actually win, which could be problematic for their World Cup chances.
And especially short on goals as well. You know, there doesn't seem to be a natural goal scorer. I mean, Diaz chips in, but he's a winger, really. I think. Oh no, there we go. I think what's really interesting. I think what's really sort of disappointing for the Copa America was, I think it suffered from. Being on at the same time as the European Championships, because of course the quality of football wasn't anywhere near the same. The stadiums were empty, and there was very, very, very little drama. This idea of going straight to penalties after 90 minutes, and it felt very flat next to the Euros. I think, which didn't reflect well, and of course nobody really wanted this tournament sort of to go ahead, apart from advertising bods and what have you, and bean counters. Wasn't a very popular. It's a tournament that I think it's just going to go down as history as we wanted to give Lionel Messi a medal, and now we have.
Yeah. Well, and again, even the final was a bit. Well, I remember watching it. I wasn't that inspired. Like, compared to the drama of Italy, England at Wembley, and as you said, just having the supporters there, like, it felt like real competition, cup tournament football. Whereas, this was a lot of the games almost seemed like training sessions half the time. Just didn't inspire too much. But who knows? Maybe in 4 years or whatever, Colombia might get a chance to host it again. That would be nice. If
it would.
Yeah, it would indeed. Of course, by the way, Ollie, we're speaking of La Selección. They're sponsored by Aguila. And walking home last night, I passed by a friend, and he gave me a can. He said, "Here, take that can." And I was already tipsy, so I said, "Well, I'll hold on to this." And considering it's our end of year anyway, maybe last show, so it's kind of our Christmas party. So cheers! I'll finish off with having a little bit of an Aguila. Smells nice. Are you an Aguila fan?
I would very rarely choose Aguila. I think I'd normally go with Poker if everything else is equal. But I'll have Aguila, outside of Bogotá.
Yeah, it's kind of the quintessential coastal drink anyway, isn't it? Like, Poker is your Bogotá drink, and maybe the
high mountains. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's not bad. I mean, it's drinkable. It's okay. Well, mentioning kind of things that passed off without incident, Colombia at the Olympics didn't really set the heart racing now either, did it? Or is that just because neither of us were that interested in it? Were that interested? I don't know. Is that a fair comment?
I mean, for once, actually, Colombia got a medal in a proper event, the 400 meters, men's 400 meters. So that's pretty good. But I mean, even in the kind of, joke events like BMX and weightlifting, it's Colombia's looking at, silvers. What was it? 4 silvers, 1 bronze. You always think for a country of 50 million people, that's a pretty poor return, to be honest.
So hold on now. What about Mariana Pajon? You think she's just competing in a joke event? She's a hero.
It's BMX. Brendan. It's BMX. I mean, she is a hero, and she doesn't actually. I don't think she gets the credit that she deserves a lot of the time in Colombia. But let's be honest, it's BMX.
El Espectador female Colombian female athlete of the year, Ollie. There you go. No less a publication than El Espectador in association with Movistar.
But also no more of a publication than Espectador.
You love their articles, Ollie, the way they write so concisely and get to the point.
Straight to the point. Yeah. Read halfway down the page before you get to anything approaching a point. Actually, I'll take that back. Espectador has some wonderful columnists. It's the nuts and bolts writing that I find painfully dry.
Yeah, like you said, they go on for paragraphs before, they'll actually, like if there was a murder or something, they'd probably describe the barrio that it happened in or something like that.
Oh, and some, strenuous kind of, political context that's just been crowbarred in there to show how intelligent the writer is. I'm not the world's biggest fan of. I always find Espectador reminds me a lot of The Independent in England. Very wordy, very kind of holier than thou.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, we're just about at time here, so I was going to ask you for your kind of maybe own personal thoughts of the last year, highlights. I know you don't like that term, highlights, but anything that stands out from a personal perspective, be it in relation to Bogotá Nights or just anything
I tell you what, I'm looking forward to going back to physical work next year. I think it's all been a bit weird, this kind of having the office in the house. So I'd be glad to get back to proper work. Kind of looking forward to traveling being an option again. I know it has been for a while, but I've not really taken advantage of it yet. So yeah, I think 2022's got chances to be positive. And of course, I mean, next year is a very big one. I think it's a big election. I think this is a big election.
Well, just for the simple fact that decade in the country, but knowing Colombia's political history as well, that it always sticks kind of center right, that the chance of having a leftist president, it's just, I'm not saying I'm either for or against that, but it just adds that, intrigue to this whole election. Because in previous ones, you're kind of going, okay, is it Santos or Zuluaga? Well, it's kind of much of a muchness. And who was it with Duque? Well, did Duque go head-to-head in the end with Petro? Yeah, it was, yeah. But it never looked likely. No. Whereas now, so, I'm certainly going to be keeping it. It'll probably be the one thing, even though my year, personally on a financial level, it looks set to end well, thankfully, because I just got a word of a new project that I'll be starting tomorrow. But I kind of be good riddance to 2021 and look forward to 2022. And that's, I was going to say, that one reason to keep me here, the idea that I'd like to be around to see what happens for that election. It should be exciting. Anybody that likes even a mild interest in Colombian politics should be interesting. And of course, the doomsayers on the right will be like, oh no, this is Colombia's going to turn into Venezuela. Look at Petro when he was mayor of Bogotá. It wasn't exactly the Trotskyite kind of Deliverance Day or something like that. Anyway,
nobody came and took away our toothbrushes.
No, well, I could probably do with somebody taking away my toothbrush right now. I need a new one. Anyway, you mentioned travel, and quickly we'll wrap up on that. So, are you planning to go anywhere? Because I do find it amazing that you haven't left Bogotá of note, like really throughout this pandemic.
Yeah, taking this whole pandemic thing relatively seriously. Yeah.
Okay, but so ends now that you technically can travel.
Yeah, thinking about maybe going and doing some diving up on the coast, something like that. Maybe taking the dogs away for a weekend near to Bogota. We'll see what we've got time for. Time and money.
Okay. Time and look at money bags, Ollie Pritchard there. Money's not an issue. Well, anyway, that's our lot, guys. And as I said, it's our lot for the year. Next week, for anyone who is in Bogota, there is going to be an iQuiz, Bogota's top trivia night, taking place at Cerveceria Gigante on Plaza Lourdes. Check out iQuiz, the Bogota Pub Quiz on Facebook. Do come along if you have spare time. It promises to be a fun night, and the more contestants and the more participants, the merrier these events always are. So we'd like to see you there. And as we said, let's see what happens in January. Ollie and I have to knock heads together and see what's happening. And also Debate Opinion, which has always been looking for sponsors. This project, they're looking to keep it going because obviously we're just one program of many in Spanish on the channel. So it would be nice to keep it going, but we're not 100% sure. So, guys, until 2022, wherever it is and wherever we meet, enjoy the Christmas and onwards and upwards. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao.